What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets It Rob. How is everybody doing on this Sunday night? Officially ready for MLB free agency to start tomorrow, and watch out for the live streams that I'll be having on this channel. MLB Hot Stove will be happening tomorrow. We're going to do an early morning show for MLB free agency, and of course, Mets Hot Stove and everything else in MLB free agent frenzy. That is all going to be throughout the offseason. But how is everybody doing tonight? Hopefully everybody is doing good. Unfortunately, my Cowboys found a way to lose once again in a big game against the Eagles. So, yes, the Giants. Haha. All right, Lakeside from South Texas. How is everybody doing? Grant, how you doing? Hopefully everybody is doing good. Why are we doing this live stream at 8:30 at night on a football Sunday? Well, there's been a lot of reports over the last few hours that the manager search for the New York Mets is down to 2. Now, apparently, the 3 finalists was Craig Counsell, Carlos Mendoza, and Mark Kotsay, out of all people. So, Mark Kotsay was just taken out of the running for Mets manager. So, all the speculation, all the reports that I'm seeing is that Carlos Mendoza, who is a very strong candidate, by the way, and Craig Counsell are the last 2 standing to be the next manager of the New York Mets. So, what does that mean for all of us? That means refreshing Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, constantly looking at our social media pages to seeing if it breaks tonight, which I doubt it will break on the weekend. I would be really surprised if it doesn't happen Monday or Tuesday, probably while I'm live doing one of my shows. So, again, I believe if Craig Counsell actually really wanted to come to the Mets, he would have had the job already. And there's a lot of speculation that he wants around $7 million, basically doubled what he got from Milwaukee. And the report is if Milwaukee's willing to match what the Mets offered, which the Mets clearly offered him a contract already. It's just a matter of if Milwaukee matches it, he's going to stay in Milwaukee. And I think that's the reason why there's been serious consideration for Carlos Mendoza. Now, Carlos Mendoza probably interviewed very well. He is the Yankees bench coach. He's been the Yankees bench coach for a number of years now. Again, as I stated earlier, if there's going to be a first-time manager, I want a first-time manager to have in-dugout, in-game experience. Carlos Mendoza fits that criteria. There was a couple of others as well that fit that criteria, but I didn't want somebody from, being an analyst or being a reporter, somebody that's in the booth that hasn't managed or been in the dugout before, or a guy like Carlos Beltran. I know a lot of people have really want Carlos Beltran. I think more people are in love with the player instead of actually the concept of the in-game decisions and dealing with the New York media. And we all know Carlos Beltran did not deal with the media well when things were going poorly. When things are going well, everybody looks like a great media, interview. The most important thing here is in-game experience. You can't have an inexperienced guy who's never been in the dugout, and I'm not talking about as a player. If you're only in as a player, that's fine. I don't care how good of a player you are. That doesn't mean you're going to be a good manager. And a lot of people like, the Latin part of Carlos Beltran could be a good thing, but Carlos Mendoza is Venezuelan, right? And he is a guy that would communicate well with a lot of the Latin players, right? So that you don't have to have concerns. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's considered as well. But he's been a very good bench coach. He's been under Aaron Boone the last couple of years. He's a well-respected person. He interviewed for the Padres manager position as well. He is very popular amongst organizations. So he's well-respected. And again, that really doesn't mean anything, right? You don't know what he's going to do in-game, but he's have gotten times when Aaron Boone, gets thrown out of the game every single game. He is the manager. He controls the game. He is, doing the bullpen moves and the lineup switches and all that stuff in games as well. My biggest problem with Craig Counsell, and we could talk about, as I brought up before, him, being a guy that's got the Brewers to the playoffs, I believe 5 out of 6 years, 5 out of 8 years, which is nice and all. But every time they get into the playoff, they just fall apart. And again, that's not all them. You got to blame the players as well. And I don't think they've done enough when it comes to player acquisitions and bringing in players to help their team because of the financial situation there. But the other issue is that I don't know if Craig Counsell is going to be all in. Now, again, everybody, I have no problem with somebody wanting to getting their money, getting their payday. Listen, it's New York. Everything's expensive. Everything is a premium here, right? Nothing's cheap here. When you come to New York, you're going to have to pay a New York premium. We all know that, right? So I'm not mad at him for trying to get his payday. But if he can get his payday in Milwaukee, where he's comfortable, where he's from, well, guess what? I think you would want to stay home too, getting, buku bucks, basically, right? So I understand that. But I don't know how all in he is. And again, if he does accept the manager job with the Mets, he'll become all in because he's already comfortable with David Stearns. I think Craig Counsell is that type of fiery guy that I believe can be all in once he gets the position. I feel that, but I don't know about the drive to come to New York, right? At least Carlos Mendoza has been in New York, has talked to the media post-game when Aaron Boone did not, right? He's dealt with the media. He's been in New York. He knows the ins and outs of New York. He's been in the city. That is a huge deal. And by the way, guys, Willie Randolph was one of the better managers in basically team history. If you really, put the Mets organization in a nutshell, Randolph was pretty good, right? And he was a Yankee, and everybody's like, oh, why would you hire a Yankee and blah, blah, blah. But Willie Randolph was a good manager until he wasn't. But again, that is the past. This is the future. I would not mind Carlos Mendoza. Again, I'm not going to sit here basically and tell you guys a bunch of lies and saying, oh, I know Carlos Mendoza is going to be a good manager. I have no fucking idea. That's the God's honest truth. But again, I want a guy that's been in the dugout dealing with in-game situations, right? He's one of the guys that you'll see, that he'll be making defensive alignments. Obviously when Boone gets thrown out of a game or is not managing a game for whatever reason, family situation, he is the manager. So he's been in that experience. He's been in that situation. That makes me more comfortable than if it was Craig Counsell and a first-time manager, even Carlos Beltran. Even though I do believe Carlos Beltran could become a good manager, this Mets team as a whole, this team is not in rebuild mode. This team is not 3 years away where you can, put Carlos Beltran in this mix and put him as the manager and make him build up and build relationships. This team needs a guy that is not afraid to say what's on his mind, say what he needs, and deal with the media, and also gain that instant respect. Carlos Beltran will gain instant respect, but once things unravel, is Carlos Beltran going to become that leader, or is he going to quibble like he did when things were going wrong in New York as a player when it came to the media? I see it as this. If Craig Counsell is the manager, I'm fine with it because of the fact he has the relationship with David Stearns. And you see, not having a good relationship with GM, president of baseball ops, or the upper management with the manager becomes a problem, as Billy Epler and Buck Showalter became a problem, and it trickled down to the players, and it became a complete disaster in 2023. So if Craig Counsell is the manager, I'm not going to, cry a river and complain, even though I don't really like Craig Counsell very much, but I understand why David Stearns would hire him. But because the decision hasn't been made yet tells me that Craig Counsell might be swaying towards the Brewers and he might come close to that offer of the Mets. And because Carlos Mendoza has become a strong candidate and David Stearns obviously has a liking to Mendoza, tells me that David Stearns probably can have a good relationship, or already might have a good relationship with Carlos Mendoza, and it's a very, very close second. So that's where we see. Grant, exactly. You can't have a Luis Rojas, even though Luis Rojas got put into a terrible situation. He wasn't ready for being a manager. Now, I do believe, and I said this once Rojas got fired, I do believe Rojas, with his pedigree, with his family, and having that experience, I wouldn't be shocked second time around if he gets a manager job. I think he would do a better job. I think he has a really good baseball mind. I just think the Mets throwing him to the wolves after Carlos Beltran got fired. So even though Luis Rojas was terrible with the Mets, I think throwing him into the position he was, I just think he was doomed to fail in that position. I think a second time around, I think he could be a better manager. But yeah, and explosive. That's another thing. Carlos Beltran, according to all the reports, wasn't even a candidate for an interview or didn't even get interviewed. So what does that tell you? That tells you David Stearns, who is a well-respected executive, a lot of teams wanted him, and a lot of teams believe that he's a really good executive. And what he did with the Brewers with financial restraints was basically extraordinary for the most part, right? He didn't interview Carlos Beltran. So that just shows you the possible confidence that they might have in Carlos Beltran. Not saying that Carlos Beltran will be a good manager or not. I don't know, and most people don't know. The fact of the matter is you can't take that chance with a team that was in disarray last year, that is a lot of question marks, and you're going to get a lot of new faces on this team next year. A lot of new bullpen arms, a lot of new rotation arms, and probably another face or two in this lineup. So a lot of new faces are going to pop up on this team with the core you already have. You can't have 2023 trickle into 2024 because the new manager can't handle the situation, the New York situation, the media situation, and have it unravel again. Because if you really want Pete Alonso to leave, have another 2023 on your hands, and nobody can blame, no Mets fan can blame Pete Alonso for leaving, for it being a complete disaster, even though he is part of the problem, by the way. More reports have come out that Alonso is not the exact guy that everybody believes he is, and that we see through the media. All right, so before I want to throw that out there for a situation. I don't know if Damian Easley can get an interview. He did a while back. I think before they hired Mickey Callaway, he was one of the candidates that got interviewed. So why are we here, right? MLB free agency starts tomorrow, November 6th, Monday. Players can sign. You got, I believe, 3 days left for teams to offer qualifying offers to players that are eligible. And then a few days, I believe they have 3 weeks for them to accept the qualifying offer. And if they do accept it, they remain with their team. If not, they become unrestricted free agents. And whoever signs that player, his former team, gets a draft pick. So again, we have to look at who doesn't accept the qualifying offers. We know Ohtani, Bellinger. There's a couple of others, if I'm not mistaken, that the Mets are probably going to be looking to be in on. And I know the report about John Heyman, by the way, talked about just think. Of course, John Heyman's going to come with a report that's not Arson Judge and say, oh, West Coast teams are the teams that Shohei Ohtani is only looking at. If Shohei Ohtani has a smart agent and is a smart individual, there is no reason why you wouldn't speak to the Mets at the very least and the Yankees to increase the price, at least with the Mets. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm exposed. I'm sorry, guys. And to go back to what Explosive just commented about the Pete Alonso situation, listen, guys, I love Pete Alonso's production. I love that he gives it his all. He worked on his defense when he wasn't very good and became a pretty damn good first baseman. Not a Gold Glove first baseman, but more than serviceable a very good first baseman. There is something that we all don't really know behind the scenes with Pete Alonso. He becomes this, good guy, likable guy through the media, yet when there's smoke, there's fire almost every time. When more and more reports are coming out and more speculation is coming out that Pete Alonso isn't one of the favorites in the clubhouse, and besides Jeff McNeil, he doesn't have a lot of buddies besides Vogelback, right? When Pete Alonso has his events for his charities, some players show up and some don't, right? That should be telling all in when it becomes a charity situation. Listen, and remember when during the home run derby, when there was a lot, when unanimous unnamed players told reporters that they think Pete Alonso is a joke, is a guy that takes the home run derby too seriously, is a goofball, right? We heard that during the All-Star break, during the home run derby. A lot of players on other teams don't like Pete Alonso, and it seems like players in his own clubhouse don't actually like him either. And again, this is not a detriment to the player itself. It's hard to to kill the numbers, right? But Pete Alonso also has been a part of a losing Mets team as well. If you're going to be the face of the franchise, you also got to take a lot of the blame as well, right? Pete Alonso was non-existent in June when the season actually still mattered. All right, he was part of the Lindor, McNeil, and Nimmo issue, even though Nimmo was better than all of them. But Pete Alonso's part of that problem. All right, and clutch performances. Listen, people love to bring up the Pete Alonso clutch performances, but don't like to bring up the Lindor clutch performances as well. But the problem is, at some point, there is a reason why the Mets have not give a contract extension to Pete Alonso yet, or even offered him probably a contract that was I would think probably a pretty reasonable contract. I think they offered Pete Alonso 7 years, probably close to 200, if not $200 million. He's looking for the 9-10-year deal, probably closer to 260 to 300. And I'm sorry, that is very hard to do for a guy who is not even top 3 in baseball as a first baseman. Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson are better overall players than Pete Alonso. All right? That's just the God's honest truth. Yeah, John, but there was also reports again. Al Cintron, who is my infamous takes on social media, who has been on the overnights on Saturdays or Sundays with WFN. He also has a couple of people he knows that is always around the Mets clubhouse that talks about Pete Alonso isn't all, what we all think he is through the media. And Sports Illustrated came out with something that was interesting as well about a week and a half ago, that Pete Alonso portrays himself differently in the clubhouse than he does through the fans from the media. So, okay, Patrick, that's nice. And what about this June when it mattered, right? Again, I'm not saying Pete Alonso was bad, but again, it was 3 games in the postseason, okay? Right? But you know what? Pete Alonso was doing well when the Mets were already blown out of games in that postseason. And in June, he was batting 198, wasn't hitting a lot of home runs. His worst month of the season, guess what? Was in June, along with other players. But when you're the face of the franchise, you have to take the bigger blame when you are part of the problem. All right? And I talked about this during the season. When the Mets weren't playing well in June and everything was going bad and Pete Alonso and Lindor were struggling at the plate, do you know who was at the top step rooting on the batters, the other batters on the team? It was Francisco Lindor when Pete Alonso was moping on the bench. All right? So if you're the face of the franchise and you're supposed to be the leader of a team, you're supposed to be doing what Lindor's doing. Right? I'm not saying Lindor shouldn't be doing that. He should with his big payday. But if Pete Alonso's expecting wants $300 million, I don't want to see you moping on the bench because you're 0 for 15 and you're batting 198 in June. Get your ass up on the top set and root on your teammates. Let's go. That shit matters to the players, your teammates. All right? That's why more people in this clubhouse get along with Francisco Lindor, because he roots on his teammates, while Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil they're seemingly looking like they're outcasts in this clubhouse. Yeah, and you know what, Jay? Lindor already having the money. If he was on the bench moping because he's not playing well, not rooting on his team, he deserves. He would get no slack. He can be the one that's saying, well, I already got paid. Why do I care about what goes on if I'm not the one benefiting from it? I just so yes, John, exactly. Al Cintron, trust me. Listen, this guy knows enough people inside that has been around the Mets clubhouse. And again, I know the guy. I've known him. I played baseball with him. I know this guy. Not well. I've played against him in baseball. I've had conversations with him, and I spoke to him through social media a lot. Trust me. Yeah, okay, John. He was hurt late in June. Okay? People got to stop with this injury. Well, okay, so Francisco Lindor was hurt the entire season with the bone spur. Where's Lindor's excuse? All right? If you're going to tell me this nonsense with Pete Alonso, Lindor was hurt the entire season since spring training. So now we're giving excuses to Pete Alonso when Lindor was hurt the whole time? You see the difference here? Homegrown player to not homegrown player, but Pete Alonso's getting the benefit of the doubt? Yet, that was late in June when he got hurt. What about the other 23 days in June when he was batting 198? Can we not continue to not talk about that? Okay, that's fine. That is, he didn't have a number 5 hitter behind him. But when he had a good 2019 season, when he had a good 2022 season, nobody was talking about the protection that he didn't have in 2022 when he had his best season. Average-wise, mostly. On base-wise, hitting-wise, just a better overall hitter. So you're going to tell me, actually, he did, because Vogelback was a better 5 hitter in 2022 than he was in 2023. So technically, he had better protection in 2022, right? Or did he not? If you don't like Vogelback, you don't think Vogelback was good at all, that's fine. So why doesn't he have bad numbers in 2022, but not bad numbers in 2023? Right? 2019, he had no protection. He had the rookie home run record. Right? Let's not talk about protection is the only issue here. Right? But in August and September, when the games didn't matter, he was one of the best players in baseball, hitting home runs all over the place, basically batting 290 when it didn't matter. So there was no protection then. When David Mennick was in the lineup, when Mauricio was in the lineup, Brett Beatty was in the lineup. Right? Why can he hit in August and September when it didn't matter, but in June when it did? Now we're going to talk about protection in the lineup? I'm sorry. The pressure got to him. All right, can we be honest about that? And again, he's not the only one. Jeff McNeil was a disaster. Lindor was a disaster. But The difference with Lindor, when his average was very much down, Lindor got his average up over 250 when Alonso only got it up to 220 and remained that for basically the entire season. Why can't Lindor get his average up to over 250, but Pete Alonso struggled with his average around 220 the entire year? I just don't understand. Again, we're focused on just replacing Pete Alonso, right? Who would you replace him with? Okay, well, let me ask you something, right? Would you rather have two more guys in the lineup that hit 25 home runs apiece, that hit 260? Or do you want one guy to hit around 45 that should be a 250 hitter, who is a good first baseman, but basically goes cold in the month that you need him the most? No, Patrick, this is his second bad year. 2021 was a bad year for Pete Alonso as well. All right? Again, he can hit all the home runs he wants, but if you bat 220, you're not really helping his team much. Yeah, but here's the difference, Akeem. Everybody's going to say about Corey Seager now, of course. But remember when Lindor got traded to the Mets? The whole thing was all these shortstops were bound to get $300 million. Right? Corey Seager, oh, by the way, talked about wanting to stay on the West Coast. Right? On top of that, what the Mets did with Lindor at the time seemed like a better move, because Corey Seager wasn't as good as he is now. It's hard to predict that. Lindor is trash and goofy. Okay, that's stupid. You know who's trash and goofy? You could talk about Pete Alonso as well. Because I seen a guy like Lindor who got his average up to 250, over 250, from batting 210 when Alonso never did. Right? Alonso's best months was April, part of May, August, and September. June and July, specifically June, was his worst month, and July wasn't much better. A little bit better. That was when it mattered. All right? And again, Pete Alonso's not alone in this. But when you're the face of the franchise and you want all the accolades, just don't blame the guys who is not homegrown, because that's the easy way out. You're allowed to blame the homegrown player as well. And Pete Alonso is part of the issue. And again, I'm not here saying trade Pete Alonso or not sign Pete Alonso. But if you tell me that Pete Alonso is worth 10 years, $300 million, you are smoking the best marijuana in this country. Because right now, he is not better than Matt Olson, and he's not better than Freddie Freeman. Now, if you want to look at Matt Olson, because they're around the same age, if Pete Alonso deserves a little bit more, I can argue that he shouldn't. But I understand the situation. There's no reason why the Mets should go more than 8 years, 210 for Pete Alonso. Sorry. I'm sorry. He's not the best. He's number 3 in overall first baseman in baseball, behind Matt Olson and Freddie Freeman. If you don't believe that, then you're not watching. All you're doing is putting Mets blinders on and too much of a favoritism towards Pete Alonso. Excuse me. Schwarber hits Mendoza line, and Phillies went back-to-back great years. Okay, did they have great years? Or did they choke in the biggest spot? Because you've seen what happened with a team that hits a ton of home runs. When they rely on home runs too much, which the Phillies did, once the home runs dried up and they went when their best home run hitters went 1 for 24, they lost. Prime Nelson Cruz, but Prime Nelson Cruz wasn't a great first baseman, right? Who are you comparing him to, right? You got to look at the comparison of other players that are of similar nature. When I look at contracts, and this is why Lindor got $300 million, because he was being compared to guys like Correa and Seager and Simeon at the time. Okay? And Lindor, besides the year that the Mets traded for him, the year before, he was one of the best shortstops in baseball prior to the year they traded. The year that the 2019 season was, I would say, his worst year, even though it was a pretty good year for Lindor. Prior to that, he was one of the best shortstops in baseball. Well, all right, Akeem, the problem is that you're talking, Nimmo just got an 8-year deal. Lindor has 8 years left on his deal. Alonso, if you want to keep him, again, I have no problem keeping him. And it doesn't, people are too concerned at the fact that, Cohen has all the money in the world. What does it matter that you pay Pete Alonso, overpay for Pete Alonso? The same people who think Lindor is overpaid wants to overpay Pete Alonso, who is not even in the best 2 of first baseman. I can argue that Lindor is probably the 2 best shortstops in baseball, along with Corey Seager. Look at his numbers, specifically the last 2 seasons. And even in his first season as a New York Met in 2021, he had a bad first half and had a really good second half. So we had one bad first half with the Mets so far. Well, Alan, I think that would be the case. Let's hope that we don't have a bad year. I can guarantee you, if the Mets are having a bad year by the deadline, Pete Alonso is getting traded. There's no doubt about that. But, Mike, we can replace Pete Alonso's production. You might not be able to replace Pete Alonso's production for one player, but you can find somebody that can bat 250, 260 to hit 20 plus to 25 home runs apiece and fill out your roster. Remember, the Mets right now might be looking for a third baseman and an outfielder. You're going to tell me you can't find 2 of those positions that hit 20 to 25 home runs? That's 50 home runs right there. And that extends your lineup. So don't tell me you can't replace that production. You can. Easy. I would go, if it took $250 million in 8 years and the Mets don't go that, I would have a little bit of a problem with them. I would do that because but who though? Okay, let's see. If the Mets sign, say, Ohtani, right? You kind of replace that right away, don't you? Okay, let's say they trade for Juan Soto, right? That's what, 35, 36 home runs? Okay, let's see. If Mauricio is going to be a part of this team, you don't think he can hit 15 to 20 home runs? Well, look at that. That's 55 home runs right there. You replace Pete Alonso, right? We've lost with Pete Alonso, right? This is the same issue when I talk about Aaron Judge. When the team needs him the most in the playoffs, he fails. When you're the best player, you got to get some blame. This is the problem with Yankee fans when it comes to Aaron Judge, right? You see what happens when Aaron Judge doesn't perform on the Yankees, right? They're not very good. If Pete Alonso struggled, right? Not much. Home run wise, great. But when his average, again, the whole team's average was completely down. That's a bigger problem than I originally, that's my bigger problem. These guys' averages got to go up. The reason why 2022 was successful until it wasn't was because the majority of this team was hitting for higher averages. Right? You can't bat 270, 265 with Pete Alonso and then bat 220 the next season. And again, in his career, he's been a 250 hitter, which is fine as a guy who hits 40 plus home runs a year. But You can't be looking for a huge contract and be the face of the franchise and act like Pete Alonso in the biggest month for this team this year was in June, and he was one of the biggest culprits of why this team did what they did at the deadline, because June was a freaking disaster. He wasn't the only one. But when you're the face of the franchise, when you're the big guy in town, when you're the fan favorite and the face of this team, you have to take blame. You got to be the first one to take blame, not the second, not the third. You can't hide behind Lindor or Jeff McNeil or Nimmo. No. You want to be portrayed as the face of the franchise, as the good guy with the media through the fan base. You got to also take the blame. I'm sick and tired of homegrown players not taking gripe from a fan base. Stop being fake. When it mattered the most, he failed. Patrick, he had a horrible September. Absolutely. But he also had the other 5 months that kept the Cubs going in a playoff race. Pete Alonso didn't help the Mets continue this playoff race. Bellinger was the best player on that team for the majority of the year. Pete Alonso was good for 2 months. That's a problem. Right? Now, I'm not saying for the Mets to sign Cody Bellinger to a $150 million deal. The fact of the matter is, this is not me saying don't sign Pete Alonso. Okay? That's not what I'm saying. The fact of the matter is, if Pete Alonso, again, you think Pete Alonso hired Scott Boras to take what the Mets would probably offer him? No. He signed Scott Boras because he knows the Mets are probably not going to go anywhere near 10 years, 270 plus. And what he's going to do, and again, you hire Scott Boras to go to free agency. So if anybody believes the Mets are going to come with an extension and agree to terms with Pete Alonso, you are dumb. Because Pete Alonso already told everybody, without saying it, by hiring Scott Boras, I'm going to free agency. And I can assure you the Mets offered numerous offers. And I guarantee you it's not more than 8 years. And it would be criminal for them to offer more than 8 years. 8 years is the limit. If another team offers him 9 or 10 years, good riddance. Because the problem is, Pete Alonso, who is offered probably contracts that we haven't heard of, extensions, didn't want to take a team-friendly deal at all. When Matt Olson took a team-friendly contract, even Freddie Freeman almost took a team-friendly contract from the Braves before the Dodgers offered him a lot of money. I appreciate what Alonso has done for us, but don't act like the Mets organization will be in shambles if Pete Alonso is not on this team. Because Bryce Harper left the Nationals, they won the World Series the following year. He goes to the Phillies have not won. Okay? The Dodgers, right? The Braves lose Freddie Freeman, gain Matt Olson. The Braves, who had better teams in 22 and 23, did not get as far as they did in 2021 or even win it or make the World Series. All right? Don't tell me nobody is end-all be-all. All right? Juan Soto was one of the better players on the Padres, and they're looking to trade him because they can't afford to pay their payroll. So don't tell me players are not expendable. No, Edwin Diaz is not the face of the franchise. If you believe that, you are clueless. I'm sorry, Patrick. You are. we're going to agree to disagree. We're going to agree to disagree in this situation. Pete Alonso is the face of this team. If you don't believe that, then you are not paying attention enough. You know how who's the face of the franchise on any team? Walk around Citi Field, and what jerseys do you see the most of? Pete Alonso. Diaz is probably not even second on that list. Pete Alonso is the face of the franchise. Now, is Edwin Diaz important to this team? Absolutely. I can tell you that Edwin Diaz is probably more important as a player than Pete Alonso. Clearly, right? They clearly missed Diaz more than they missed Alonso. Why you can do that? Because two players that can get that production. And by the way, if somebody hits 20 to 25 home runs, they're probably going to hit between 60 and 70 RBIs, most likely. So right there, with two players that can have the same average total that you just gave, what it does, it extends the lineup. That's what it does. Right? The reason why everybody was so good in 2022 was because everybody performed and it stretched out the lineup. That's the difference. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. So let's get back to the main topic. Carlos Mendoza and Craig Counsell are the two finalists for the Mets managerial position. The third finalist was Mark Kotsay, who interviewed not too long ago, and he was the third finalist, but now he's out of the running. So now it's down to Mendoza and Counsell as the next Mets manager. We should be finding out in the next couple of days or so, according to multiple reports. And yes, Alan, Rivera wasn't even a face of the franchise. Hold on. Edwin Diaz took over the city. Why? Because of a song. All right? No closer is the face of your team. Right? Mariano Rivera, you could say was more important than Derek Jeter, but Derek Jeter was the face of that franchise. Now, did you have a lot of Mariano jerseys in Yankee Stadium? Absolutely. But nowhere near the Derek Jeter jerseys. Darder, what's up, man? Again, this is not saying that I want to get rid of Pete Alonso, but there is a limit to every player. You got to remember, Steve Cohen just became owner. He wanted to make a splash. Lindor was that splash saying, here I am, Major League Baseball. F you to the owners. I'm here. Deal with it. That's another reason why the Lindor situation happened the way it did. Steve Cohen unzipped his pants and showed his enormous pockets, basically, in layman's terms, okay? You guys know what I'm talking about. You know, that guy that walks out of the shower in the clubhouse bare-ass naked because he knows what he's packing. That was what Steve Cohen wanted to prove. Saying, hey, I'm here, deal with it, and this is my team. He had to make a spark. At that time, that was the only thing that was available at the time. Remember, nobody was free agents until that following year when Lindor was already traded. The next year was when all them shortstops were free agents. Yeah, Rob. Yeah, Steve Cohen had an amazing fiscal year with his hedge fund. Oh, by the way, he also reinvested and basically paid off the debt that the Mets and the organization as a whole was under. He actually fixed that problem and reinvested that equity. And that helps him reinvest more into the team and roster. Just so you guys know. That $50 million debt that the Wilpons decided to not care about, Steve Cohen just took care of that. So that equity and that investment, reinvesting, is going towards the team now. So for anybody who believes, How Steve Cohen said he's not going to spend money. He never said that. He said you're not going to see a ton of star players. And what I took out of that was older star players. That's what I took out of it. I agree, Grant, 100%. Yeah, but Christopher, where are you going to find a World Series manager that currently doesn't have a job? Do you want to hire Joe Girardi, who was a complete disaster with Philadelphia? Bruce Bochy, remember, the Mets tried to interview Bruce Bochy. Bruce Bochy didn't want to come to the East Coast. So the Mets couldn't do anything about that. Bochy wanted to stay on the West Coast. Texas was a perfect spot for him. Yeah, Patrick, I always talk about the farm system. I talked about many times how much he already did. And again, I go to spring training every year. All right. I went from 2018, 2019, 2021, even after the first time we opened back up in 2021 with baseball games, I was there. The difference Port St. Lucie and their complex is in Port St. Lucie is night and day compared to what the Wilpons had. You could just see all the new technology just walking around when the fans get access to the other fields. The difference of technology and all the beautiful fields, all the fields. If you don't remember, again, I'm going to tell you, I was there. When I went in 2018 and 2019, when the Wilpons still on the team, the complex backfields were disgusting. Now, they can probably be good for, pick up baseball or little league, but they weren't major league caliber. These fields were immaculate, beautiful. Every field has some type of technology to help these players grow. That's a fact. And just ask anybody you might know that been to spring training through the Wilpon years and now through the Cohen years. All right. Now he's going to let David Stearns choose his guys that he wants as scouts, as developmental coaches in the minors. That's going to be David Stearns, right? For years, we had still the stink of the Wilpon, a lot of the Wilpon scouts and coaches and developmental staff. We'll see. We will really see. But there is no doubt, ladies and gentlemen, that Steve Cohen has put a ton of money into the farm system. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. All right. You brought up Francona, who's not there, who is going to be, right? If that's the case, who are you going to bring? Like that's what I'm saying. Most of the time, you're going to be hiring managers that are either nowadays first-time managers or retreads that have been fired by other teams. That's just how it goes. Either a first-time manager or retreads. Very rarely you're going to get a retread that has won a World Series as a manager. Might have won a World Series as a coach, but not as a manager. Bruce Bochy was never wanted to come to the East Coast. He didn't interview. He declined the interview for the Mets when the Mets offered to interview him a couple of years ago. Again, there's not a lot out there. Again, Joe Girardi is the one guy I can say, okay, was successful, won a championship with the Yankees, was a disaster in Philadelphia, and when Joe Girardi got fired, Philly has been a better team ever since with Rob Thompson, who, oh, by the way, is a first-time manager, but was a very experienced in dugout, in-game experience coach for a while. That's why Carlos Mendoza is not a terrible choice as a first-time manager, because I can respectfully say he's dealt with in-game situations. He's been in the dugout. And obviously Craig Counsell was the manager of the Brewers. So, again, it's I don't think Robert Washington's I think he's too happy in Atlanta. I was going to say the Milwaukee Braves. Jesus. I'm tired, guys. I apologize. The Atlanta Braves. I think he's too. Again, Ron Washington would be awesome. I mean, that guy's energetic. And a couple of years ago, Ron Washington and Pete Alonso was working out at first base at the All-Star game. I don't know if you guys remember that. But Ron Washington was showing him where to place his glove while he's getting set when the pitch is getting thrown, and how he should be, reacting to ground balls and where he needs to, put his glove on the ground and he's working his way up as an infielder. Yeah, and you know what, Mike? Absolutely. And again, I think too many people are too concerned about just the manager. It's the other coaches that are going to be around them. Bruce Bochy had Mike Maddox with him too, that he took away from another team, right? Coaches matter, right? And maybe Chavez is going to be a part of that, but you got whoever the manager is needs to have his staff. Pat Murphy, who was another consideration for a Mets managerial position. Craig Counsell might take him as his bench coach. Pat Murphy is a guy you don't want to be alone with in a dark alley, because he was thrown out more times than Craig Counsell as bench coach. This guy is fiery and is not going to take no crap from nobody. And the Milwaukee Brewers are one of the better defensive teams in baseball. And Pat Murphy is the ones that deal with a lot of the defensive alignments as well. So that might be interesting as well. Kevin Long, well, he's on. He was with the Phillies. I think he's going to stay. I think he like. Oh, JL, you don't know. Listen, I'm not going to lie. JL, listen, I love you. I wanted the Phillies to beat the Braves so I can have a ha-ha moment. But to have the Phillies lose the way they did in their home ballpark, oh my God. That felt as good as I possibly can be, considering the Mets 23-3 disaster. I felt as good as I possibly can in the postseason that didn't involve the Mets. You know what I'm saying? Mike, you could say that, but you know what? When Chavez was the hitting coach, the Mets players had one, he basically made Nimmo have his best year of his career, get a big contract. Pete Alonso's best year was last year. Marte was great. Lindor probably had a better year this year than last year, but he was just as good, right? So Chavez might be a part of this. But again, whoever the manager is, he needs to hire his own staff. I don't want to have guys that are here from the Buck Showalter era or even the Luis Rojas era. Get your own guys. Yeah, JL, the D-back surprised everybody. But guess what? My motto has worked again. A top 10 payroll has won the World Series again. So for everybody who says money doesn't win championships, tell the Texas Rangers that. Because they spent over $800 million over the last 2 seasons, and they won a world championship after not even 2 years ago, they lost 100 games. So don't tell me payroll and money doesn't buy championships, right? They spent $600 million on Simeon and Seager, along with, who? Jacob deGrom. Traded for Max Scherzer. Traded for Jordan Montgomery. They spent a ton of money. So don't tell me money doesn't win championships. Because, yes, you got to put other players around them. Absolutely. But it still matters. But, Ali, you see, here's the problem. Why didn't Arizona, right? Arizona got beat down in the World Series, right? They got basically lucky against the Phillies. Let's be honest about that. It takes a lot of luck involved. A lot of their young players performed when it mattered. But what was Arizona missing? They were missing that one guy like a Corey Seager. They were missing that one guy like a Bryce Harper, right? The guy that takes over a game. Corey Seager did that. Arizona had nobody to do that. Corbin Carroll is an excellent player, rookie of the year. But he's not at that point yet. That was what they were lacking. When they were making them bonehead plays, them bad base running, they needed somebody to step up. There wasn't that elite talent, that big money guy that you can count on that was on that Arizona Diamondbacks team. Again, all the credit in the world. They got as far as they possibly could with the talent they have. But it wasn't enough. And I'm sorry, you don't get a consolation prize for coming in second. Was everybody happy that the Mets came in second place in 2015? I wasn't. I was there. It was miserable seeing a team celebrate on your field. All right? I'm sorry. You don't get no gratitude. You don't get no happy feelings for coming in second place and losing in a World Series. It's like losing in the Super Bowl. It sucks. Nobody cares. You get a National League Championship ring. Wonderful. You get a banner that says NL Champs. Yippee. Second place is still a pennant, but who cares? Again, I don't care. Again, the Braves have more pennants than I have fingers. You know, like the Braves have so many division titles, have a couple of NL pennants. That's wonderful. But when you don't win the World Series, does it really matter the following year? Absolutely not. I'm telling you right now, if the Mets would have won the World Series in 2015, 2016 is basically just simple, just easy going, no pressure. Whatever happens in 2016. We go back to back. Oh my God. Couldn't believe it. Oh, Jay. I was 13 years old when the Yankees beat the Mets. My dad was at the game. I couldn't go. Unfortunately, my dad got a company ticket from his job, and it was only one ticket, unfortunately. And my dad didn't want to go because I wasn't going. But, I mean, come on, Dad. You haven't seen a World Series since 86. Like, come on. Like, go. Jaden, I hope you're talking about the Mets, Giant fan. I'm assuming you are, hopefully. Probably in the next couple of days with the Mets. But it was hard. I was 13 years old. I cried my eyes out. And then I had my upstairs neighbors that were diehard Yankee fans stomping on the floor, on the second floor, because they were very, very happy when I was crying my eyes out. And then I had to go to school with a bunch of moron Yankee fans. And then the following year was my high school where I went, and everybody on my baseball team were Yankee fans. So how do you think I felt? My high school years was 2001 to 2005. Wasn't very fun years as a Mets fan. Yeah, KTU, I am talking about the steroid Yankees. Them needle pushing son of a, you know what. Sorry, I just had to say it. John, we've been talking about we talked about managers early. There's not much more to say except there's your two finalists. Everybody started to ask questions, and then we just go on from there. You lucky I'm off today from work because the lack of sleep is your fault. No, I'm joking. I'm joking, guys. I love you guys. I know, guys. Listen, how many years has it been since the Mets won the World Series? 37 years, if I'm correct. My math's correct. I mean, my dad probably reminds me every day. 37, right? Oh, yeah, granted, it was fun watching Wright and Reyes. Absolutely. 37 years, right? Right? Because I'm 36. I was born the year after. I apologize. It's my fault. So 37 years. Holy Christ. 37 years. I was born in 87, and they won in 86. All right, so you can blame my dad for, making me in 86, clearly, during the Mets run. I was born in August, so do the math. My dad was a very happy guy after the World Series, so do the math. All right, guys, so the main story, the real story that we were talking about early on until it got really crazy, Pete Alonso oriented, and God knows what else we talked about. Jay, I'm glad you saw it. I mean, my dad told me he went to every World Series game at Shea Stadium in 86. And he says he never felt a stadium rock like Shea Stadium. It swayed. Now, if you were there, you probably understand what my dad's talking about. Shea Stadium moved in Game 6 and in Game 7. That's where the we will rock you. We all know that, right? That's where it's from. So, yeah, Ray Night happened. Exactly. Oh, I'm telling you guys, when I put out my new intro video for the new season, it's going to be nice. I tell you that. It's going to be part of 86 because it's the 37 years. It's basically my lifetime. Explosive. How? And let me put that up. I'm sorry. Let me put that up there. Rob, if we don't get Counsell, how will the New York media react? Like the babies they are. And again, I guess you could consider, I'm not really part of the media, but I guess I'm social media, whatever. But I don't consider myself those guys because I actually give a shit about the Mets and they don't. They're going to say it's a bust. People are not going to like Carlos Mendoza. Again, John Heyman, Mets beat reporters. Nobody's going to be happy with that. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're going to say, oh, first-time manager, the Joe Benignos of the world are going to hate it. Evan Roberts might like it, but like guys like John Hopper, those guys, they're not going to like it because they don't like first-time managers. Ohtani to the Rangers. Imagine that shit. Oh, God. Yeah, I heard that story from John Heyman. And again, all you got to remember from John Heyman, even though I like John Heyman, but arson judge, all right? Let's take it for what it's worth. Of course, he's going to talk about how easy is it to report. Just pick all the West Coast teams that are actually decent or good on the West Coast and say Ohtani is the favorite to land there. I mean, that's the easiest reporting known to man. That's not reporting. That's just common sense. Obviously, he likes the West Coast. Of course, he's going to say the Giants, the Rangers, the Mariners, the Dodgers. Duh. I mean, a baby could have realized that. Right? But when it's so easy, it's probably the exact opposite. Let's be honest about that. Right? Max Scherzer was supposed to sign with the Dodgers until he was a Met. Right? Remember that? I was live when that shit happened. Right? The Mets, the Dodgers offered Scherzer 2 years and similar money to what the Mets did. Steve Cohen got involved and sat down with Scherzer and says, what is it going to take to come to New York? Scherzer said the third year, and he did it. Ohtani is going to take the most money. I'm sorry, guys. He might love the West Coast, but if there's a team on the East Coast, I don't care who it is, even if it's Boston, if they offer the most money, listen, Shohei Ohtani, the best player in baseball, can't take less money to go to another team and not take the biggest offer because the union and the players are going to be very upset at him. And don't think that shit doesn't matter. Why do you think Max Scherzer took that extra year from the Mets? A union rep. Right? He was a big vocal leader when the strike happened. Remember that. I'm sorry, guys. If you don't think the Mets are top 5 favorite to land Ohtani, you clearly don't know Steve Cohen. All right? You don't know. Honestly, guys. Now, do I think it's going to happen? No. But don't think Steve Cohen is not going to do everything he can to get Shohei Ohtani. Remember during the WBC, I know the Met fans don't want to talk about WBC because of Edwin Diaz. Who was in Japan when Japan was facing their group stage games in Japan on the field? Steve Cohen. That was big on MLB Network. Now, again, there's probably other owners there, maybe other GMs, but Steve Cohen was on the field. What do you think he was doing there? Watching the game? Yeah, probably. Who was Japan facing? Australia? I don't think he cared about the game. Don't think for a second he didn't have a conversation with Ohtani or his reps or people that know Shohei Ohtani to get back to him. Steve Cohen isn't stupid. Now, he might be new to baseball, but he isn't new to business. This is more business than it is baseball. All right? Well, Alan, absolutely. Listen, what you want to do at the very least is knock out the National League teams on the West Coast based on price. If he goes to Seattle, who cares? If he goes to Texas, who cares? Even if he goes to Boston, who cares? As long as he's not a Philly, a Dodger, a Philly, a Dodger, or a Brave, does it really matter? Until you face him, and you might face him 3 times in a year if he's on the West Coast and in the American League. I mean, come on. Go to Seattle. That would make my day. He's out of the he won't go to he ain't in the National League. He's not even in a team that the Mets are going to face more than 3 times. Great. Win 85 games there. Right? Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani couldn't win with the Angels. And those were the 2 best players in baseball for how many years? Yeah. Phillies need a first baseman. Well, I think they're going to re-sign Hoskins for probably 1 year. Like, don't get me wrong. Don't think for a second that if Pete Alonso doesn't sign an extension, the Phillies are not going to go after Pete Alonso. That's a fact. Why wouldn't they? But what that does, and that would be music to Pete Alonso's ears, because that's going to drive the Mets price up. The reason why the Mets shouldn't extend Pete Alonso to that massive nonsense contract he wants, 9-10 years for $270 to $300. Do what the Mets did with Brandon Nimmo. They didn't extend Brandon Nimmo. They says, find the best offer and come back to us. That's what he did. And the Mets made a better offer. And that was it. There's no reason why you can't do that with Pete Alonso. If Steve Cohen wants Pete Alonso, people talk about the Mets overpay for Francisco Lindor, right? Why overpay for Pete Alonso when you don't have to? What if Pete Alonso goes to the Giants or the Phillies or the Yankees or whoever, the Cubs, and all they're offering him is 8 years, $270? The Mets can match that. JL, I agree. I know you came in late, but I talked about that. Pete Alonso is not better than Matt Olson or Freddie Freeman. And I compare him more to Matt Olson because they're around the same age. Pete Alonso, because of him being basically the only first baseman and the best first baseman available, he's going to get a little bit more than Matt Olson, obviously. But he shouldn't get $120 million more than Matt Olson. He's not a better player. Now, if you tell me $250, all right, as an extension. Now, it's no holds barred if it's free agent period for Pete Alonso and the Cubs offer him 9 years, $280, and then he comes back to the Mets. That's when you match that offer or go above. But there's no reason for the Mets to extend him to an unrealistic contract when you don't know what the market's going to be for him. Why overpay when you can always outbid anybody anyway? Robbie, you sure about that? Because automatically Pete Alonso would be the best player on the team, which he currently is now for the Mets. How's that worked out? I mean, the Giants weren't that much better than the Mets. But Again, Pete Alonso in a much bigger ballpark in San Francisco, not go 5 or 6 home runs probably, just for any player. Well, I don't know if people saw on social media the Pete Alonso uniform swap with the Cubs. He looks pretty good in the Cubs uniform, but let's not scare Mets fans here. All right, guys. So the story that has come over the last couple of hours, there is 2 finalists for the Mets managerial position. It is Craig Counsell, obviously, and Carlos Mendoza, the Yankees bench coach. Now, I think the strong candidate in Carlos Mendoza clearly had a good interview with David Stearns. The 3rd finalist was Mark Kotsay. He is done out of the running now. So, I would be shocked, Monday or Tuesday, one of these 2 days, you're probably going to find out who is the Mets manager. If I'm going to bet, if I throw $100 down right now, I think it's going to be Carlos Mendoza. Because if I think it was Craig Counsell, I think it would have been more speculation and less talk about Carlos Mendoza being a heavy candidate and a serious candidate as a finalist. So, guys, I agree, JL. I agree. Patrick, that's wrong. You don't know that the Mets didn't offer a contract. The Mets did, or Pete Alonso would have never changed agents. I'm telling you right now, the Mets offered him 7 years, probably around $180 to $200 million. You don't think the Mets offered him any contract? That's stupid. You're not going to give the biggest offer as an extension. Teams don't give the highest offer in an extension. They give an offer that's respectable and team friendly. You don't give somebody $300 million in an extension. It just doesn't happen. Jail, you heard of Beltran. Again, Patrick, you're obsessed with Beltran because of the player, not because of what he can do as a manager, because we don't know. Because he's never been in the dugout. Now, if Carlos Beltran became a bench coach somewhere, or, a hitting coach, or even, I don't know, a third base, first base coach, at least he was in the dugout. That means something. Again, I'm not saying Carlos Beltran won't be a good manager, but it's too risky for a team that needs a leader, not just in the clubhouse, through the media. Carlos Beltran isn't that guy for the media. When things go bad, again, when things went bad later in Carlos Beltran's career with the Mets and early on with the Mets, he was a disaster with the media. When things are going well, it's easy to talk to the media. So, who do you want? Craig Counsell and Carlos Mendoza. That's your choices. There's nobody else. Beltran didn't get an interview. A little shocking. Maybe he deserved it, but he didn't get it. Maybe David Stearns has better aspirations for him. Maybe he wants Carlos Beltran as an international scout or international advisor. Get a couple of those Puerto Rican players that are highly regarded in the international market. He might be better off there. So, Carlos Mendoza, Craig Counsell. Probably going to find out in the coming days. All right, guys. So, we'll see tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., November 6th, MLB free agency starts. That means MLB Hot Stove, Mets Hot Stove, and MLB Free Agent Frenzy on the channel a lot during the offseason. You're going to see my face, this ugly face, as much as you guys either like or dislike me. You're going to see me a lot over the next 2.5 months. Probably 5 days, maybe even 6 days. Going to get the boys with the round table tomorrow. as long as it works out. I know we've been busy. Schedules haven't been working out for us, but most likely sometime this week we're gonna have a Mets roundtable to talk about the hot stove, and hopefully the manager of the Mets. It's November 5th. The turkeys are getting warm. The Mets have a lot of work to do. What will they do? First up on the docket, manager. We'll find out who it is, guys. With that said, have a great night. Thank you guys for watching. As always, Met fans, let's go Mets. I'll see you tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. for MLB Free Agent Frenzy Live Day 1. Everybody, have a great night. Let's go Mets, guys. See you next time.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball.